Today we're gonna try to do a simple bedroom scene like this one. So let's jump into Revit. Let's create a new project based on the metric architectural template and click OK. Okay, so right away I want to start drawing some walls, and I'm going to use maybe a 200 mm wall. Then I'm gonna use the rectangle tool, set it to finish face interior, and then the height I want it to go all the way up to level 2. Then I can start drawing a square like this. Then I'll just adjust the dimensions. I think around 4 meters by 4 meters is good. Okay, and then I'm just gonna draw I'm gonna use a curtain wall to represent this window. So again, go to wall, architectural. I'm gonna choose curtain wall, but this time I only want it to go up to level 1, 2700, which is our ceiling. I think our ceiling height, or maybe even lower than the ceiling height. 2.4. Then I'm gonna just draw inside. Never mind the warning, because right now this curtain wall is not set to auto embed. So once we turn this on, it will cut away the wall. And just before I continue, I'm just gonna set out 600 mm from the top and bottom wall, because I only want my window to go all the way up to here. So this one is just nice, perfectly 600 mm away from the wall. This one I'm going to use the modify tool, extend up to this line only. And then right now this curtain wall doesn't have some mullions yet, so let's first create a rectangular mullion. That's, maybe we can use this one, 50 by 150. I just want to make sure there's a material applied to this particular mullion type, and there is aluminum. Then I can just change this. Vertical mullions, I all want them to use 50 by 150. Also this one, also this one. Also the horizontal mullions. Then I want to set out a vertical grid of maximum spacing, maybe 1200. Okay, that takes care of our window. Let's just check in 3D. I can hide this levels. Okay, we're almost halfway through already. We just need to add the floor and the ceiling and a few furniture. So let's go to architecture. Let's add the floor now. And generic 150, I just want to create a new type. I'm going to call this WD01 because our floor is a wood finish. And I just want the thickness to be 50. Then the material, I'm just gonna create a new material, call it WD01, and under appearance I'm also gonna name it WD01. Then just change the color to something beige like this. Now it doesn't matter what to set out a image for our material here, because later on I'm gonna replace it once we're in Twinmotion. So I just need it to be different from the other elements inside the model. Okay, so I'm gonna draw this rectangle to represent our floor. Make sure my height offset is 0. No, I don't want the walls to attach to this floor. And Let me just check. I'm just changing to consistent colors just to see how our model is looking now. Okay, it's good. Now let's go to the ceiling. And this time, if we refer back to the inspiration image, I can see there's a cove light here and here. So I'm just gonna offset this ceiling 150 mm away from the walls. Okay. So I'm gonna start my ceiling command. I'm using the plane ceiling, and then let me just check the structure. It's using a gypsum wall board finish, which is fine for me. I just like bringing this up and removing this metal stud layer. I don't need it. I just need the 12 mm thick finish. Then click OK and OK. I can start sketching. I'm gonna trace the outline of our square room. Then I'm gonna use the offset tool to offset maybe 150 away from the top wall and the right wall. Then before I finish, I'm just gonna set the height to 2700. Okay, let me just check again in 3D. Now I just need the upper part of that cove wall. So I'm gonna create another one. What I usually do is I use this tool, create similar, and then I click on sketch ceiling again. I just trace out this edge, and this edge. Then I'm just gonna use the trim tool to close this loop, and I'm gonna offset it another 150 mm towards the inside because it's a cove after all, and the ceiling height should be around 2850. So let's check that in 3D. I'm gonna isolate this ceiling category so that we can easily build the upstands of that ceiling. Okay, so isolate category. Alright, now I'm gonna click on component, model in place. I want it to fall under the ceiling category. Okay, and I'm gonna set the work plane to the top of this ceiling. Okay, so any extrusion I start now will fall under or will land on that upper face of that ceiling. Okay, and I pick those two edges. I offset 12 mm for the thickness. Make sure I have copy on this time, and I'm just pressing tab to highlight the entire chain of those lines, and then I'm just gonna pick and trim this corner, pick line again, and then trim this corner. And I only want this upstand to be around 50 mm, and the thickness of this ceiling is already 12, so I know I just need 38 mm for this upstand left. For the material, I'm gonna use the same gypsum wallboard material. And then click finish. Okay, I'm gonna start another extrusion to represent the back end of this upstand. So create extrusion. This time I'm picking these edges. Then basically the same thing. I'm just picking the edges. Then I'm gonna offset again another 12 mm. Click tab to highlight the entire chain of lines and just trim away. This time I want it to go all the way up to this face, so I know it's 150 mm. And when I click finish, it should land there. Now to put the cove light material here, we need to create that material first. So we go to manage, go to materials, then I usually use the default to duplicate. Right click, duplicate material and assets, call this light cove or cove light. Just gonna use render appearance. Then the name, I also use light cove or cove light. Set this to something like a beige material. Like this. And then once we've created that, we can use the paint tool. Then select that material, cove light. Then just paint the face of the upstand that we want to make a cove light. Okay, then we can click done and finish. So our basic structure is already here, but before we bring this into Twinmotion, I'd like to put in a few furniture, specifically the bed, this side tables, and this light structure, this pendant light. Okay, to put in the bed, we can load the default family from Autodesk. So we go to load Autodesk family, then we select furniture, beds, then I want just a very basic bed because we're gonna replace this model anyway once we are inside Twinmotion. Then I can go back to level 1 floor plan and click on component, place a component. But I can see there's a few options here. I'm gonna start with the king bed, but I'm gonna duplicate this because I have a specific size in mind. For example, 2000 by 2180 mm. You may be wondering where I got these values. Later on I'll show, because I've chosen a SketchUp model, a nice SketchUp model with these dimensions. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna replace this Revit model later on inside Twinmotion with the SketchUp model that contains the pillows. It looks more organic and more it's better for rendering or for visualization purposes. But I just want the size to be roughly the same so that we know it fits inside the space. What I forgot to change is the actual dimension should be, the width should be 2000 and the length should be 2180. And just want to make sure everything's in order. Then I'm just gonna move it to the center of the room. Then I also want a couple of side tables. So let's go to insert once again, load an Autodesk family. This time I want a furniture, tables, then there should be one, night table, nightstand, this one. Then I'm gonna place it using the same command, place a component, and this time I want the size to be 600 by 400 by 650 mm. 600 width, 400 depth, 650 mm height. So depth is 400, height is 650, and the width is 600. And then I'm just gonna place it roughly here first. Then I just want to make sure it's centered along this. Okay, that's lucky again. So it's already perfectly centered. but I just want to move it away. All three of this furniture, I'll just move it away around 60 mm away from the wall, because if you see our design, there's actually a built-up wall here, like a wood paneling, and we're gonna create this using a model in place component. So let's do that now. I'm here in the floor plan again. I'm gonna go to component, model in place. I'm gonna put this under casework. Casework 1 is fine. So I'm gonna create an extrusion, and I'm just gonna start from here to here, rectangle, and then I'm just gonna change this to 50. I just like to put a bit of a gap there, so that later on it will actually show some shadows in our rendering. So let me just see if this is exactly 1000 mm. Okay, that's good. And then I just want to offset 20 mm this way, then 30 mm towards the inside, like this, so it has the shape. And I'm gonna mirror this to the other side. Gonna use the bed as the mirror line, and I know I want this to go all the way up to 2850, which is the upper side of our cove ceiling. For the material, let's go to our inspiration image again. So we have a wood laminate like this, and I've already put inside the training files, there's a materials folder. You can use this one, the PL03 seamless one. Let's just check the size before we actually use it. So it's around 750 by 1500 mm. So let's assume that's the actual size of the laminate. So let's go to Revit. Here under material, let's go to default first, duplicate, call this PL03. You may be wondering why PL03, why not PL01? I usually reserve PL01 for white laminate, and then PL02 will be the black laminate. Same for paint. For example, PT01 is the white paint, PT02 I usually use for black paint. Sometimes PL03 or PT03 I reserve for gray finishes, like a gray laminate, but in this case we don't have a gray laminate, so I'm just gonna set our wood laminate to be PL03. So under appearance, we go to the image section, navigate to where your exercise files are saved, and let's use this one, the one with the seamless _seamless in the file name. And then let's just change the width to, first let's unlock it so it can have a different aspect ratio. Width is 750, height is 1500. Then click done. Just use render appearance. You can check it so that it follows the color, and then you can finish. And then let's check on 3D first. Let me just finish the model first, just to see, and this way I can also isolate it first. So I'm gonna isolate category again. Okay, so let's build the low part of the built up now. Okay, so let's edit and place this one again. Go back to our floor plan, create another extrusion. This time I only want to trace this shape, and I want it to go until 1050 only. It's gonna follow the same material, PL03, click finish, and then one more extrusion, create extrusion, the back end of this built up. But this time I only wanted to go to 1020 and finish. Let's check in 3D how that looks. Okay, and then at this point, if you want to get rid of this joint, you can use the join geometry command here. Under modify, join geometry, then pick this, and then the front face of the low wall. And if you want also, you can join also the back face. Okay, so we have something of a cove here also. So let's paint this cove, the same cove light material we painted on the ceiling. So we go to modify, we go to paint. Cove light is still active, so let's just start painting away these faces. Okay. Okay, now you can click done. Then let's finish editing that component. I'm gonna reveal everything. So the only thing missing now is the pendant light. So before we do that, I just like to put a reference line here. Just so we know exactly where to put our pendant light. So inside our training or our exercise files, I also put that pendant light model that I created for this exercise, this one, lamp 1. So let's go ahead and load that family. We go to insert, load family, then under exercise 2 models, let's load lamp 1. Okay, once it's loaded, to put it, we just use the same command, place a component, and this time if you've put on this floor plan, you might get this warning. It's not visible, so let's go to the ceiling plan instead, and you should be able to see. Our cutting plane for the floor plan is just a bit or a tad lower than the actual height of this pendant lamp. So its base offset is 1.5, rod length is 700. Let's just check if it's reaching the ceiling. So I'm gonna create a section going this way. And let's check that view. Right click on the section line, go to view. Okay, 1.5 is fine, but I just need to stretch this a little up. Okay. And just to show you that this object actually has materials inside, so this is good enough. As long as they have distinct materials from the other elements, we can use that one. Switching back to hidden line, I'm just gonna copy this to the other side. Okay, so let's check in 3D again. Okay, at this point, our modeling here in Revit is done. Our next step will be to bring it into Twinmotion. Now inside Twinmotion, before we bring in our Revit model, let's delete this starting base. Let's delete the starting landscape. And then the starting ground, we don't need to delete it, but let's put a grass material instead. So under library, ground, nature, let's choose this one, grass 5, and just drag it onto that starting ground plane. Then the ambience on the scene graph on the right, click it, and then let's use an HDRI sky. This time I'd like to, if you see the sky here, it looks like a second overcast sky. It's very even, so let's do something similar. So under library, HDRI, let's choose skies, then noon, overcast. Then let's choose this one, the first pure overcast sky, noon overcast 14. Just drag and drop it onto the preview. Okay, with this we can start to import our Revit model. So click on import here at the bottom, then click the plus button. Let's choose a direct link. If your file name isn't showing, maybe you haven't saved your project yet, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that here in Revit. I'm just gonna save, and then I'm just gonna call this TRR underscore ex2. I'm just gonna use A because I already have a previous file I created. So 2A. If it still doesn't update here in Revit, I mean in Twinmotion, you just need to close this file first and then reopen it. Then when you go back to Twinmotion, it should show the correct file name. So as you can see, it's again recognizing our default 3D view. But before I actually proceed, I just want to do one thing. I just want to turn this into a fine detail level and save. And then I can go ahead and direct link it into Twinmotion. Of course, if you watched our training series, basic training series, this one we should always keep hierarchy so that we can select the Revit elements individually here in Twinmotion. With this, everything is set. Just click import. Doesn't appear yet because we still need to go back to Revit, and under Datasmith, click on synchronize, and it should appear in our project. Gonna zoom in, see how it's looking. First things first, let's fix the glass. I really hate this glass from Revit. So let's go to library, materials, glass. I always choose this one, item glass, drag and drop it onto the glass of our model. Right click to cancel out of everything. Before we proceed even further, I'd like to try rotating our HDRI just to see. Yes, I want to see some light coming into our space. Maybe I'll increase the intensity also to 10. Also, if you hit R to activate path tracing, that intensity is actually different from the intensity when path tracing is not active. So hit R to see a preview of your path tracing. Then also specify a value of around, wow, 10 is quite bright, but it's okay. Let's start with 10 first. Okay, so again, once you're inside here and your Revit model is inside, before we replace these elements, let's start to enhance some of the materials that came with it. This wall material, we can actually make it white and set a different roughness value, but this time I think I'd like to totally replace it with a material from here into Twinmotion. So under here, materials, there should be a wall covering category. Then there's a plaster coating material here, so let's use this one. Drag and drop it onto that wall material. Then let's change the UV to world space so that we can see the texture of it. And actually I want to make it just a bit darker and a more beige color. Something like this one. Because if you check our inspiration image, it could actually be white, but just to help us along in our rendering, I just like to make it a bit towards the a beige color. so it's not perfectly white. Okay, maybe it helps to put a bit of a grunge also. I'll put in around 5%, just so there's some bit of discoloration on its surface. The ceiling material is actually okay, but I can sort of see the tiling. So what I can do is I'll just turn on. I'm using the eyedropper tool, pick the ceiling material. Then I'm just gonna click this one, randomize UV, just so it doesn't, the repeating is not too obvious. And then the roughness I can change to 60%. Okay. Then next is this mullions. Should be aluminum, so let's make it 100% metallic. But the roughness, let's just set to around 50. So I don't need it to be too shiny. Next is the flooring, which if you use the eyedropper tool, pick it. It should say WD01. This is the one that I'd like to replace. Now, we've been using Twinmotion materials all along so far, but this time I'd like to use Megascans material. So from the very parent menu of the library, you can choose Megascans, then surfaces, wood, parquet. And I think this is the one that I used before. So I'm going to use this one, Brick Bond Maple Parquet. And just drag and drop it onto the floor. The scale looks definitely wrong. So I'm just going to pick it, turn it to world space. Still looks a bit small. So I'm going to make it a bit bigger. Scale it up to 4. Yeah, 4 seems okay. So let's check the inspiration image again. You see the flooring here is not actually very shiny. So let's try to emulate that. I'm gonna pick this material again, then I'm just gonna increase the roughness a bit to around maybe 70, so that it's not too shiny. Okay. And then, once we have all, no, not yet. We can still improve of course, this lamp. Let's eyedrop this material. Set the emissiveness of it to around 20. Then the color temperature around 3500. I'm just gonna preview it a bit with our path tracing. Okay, that's fine. Then next one is this material. Actually, let's try to replace this one. I don't like the texture so much, so let's go to materials, wood. But let's look for something similar. This one, red cedar 06G, and drag and drop it onto that material. Set the UV scale triplanar to world space, and maybe the rotation to 90. Okay, yeah, that looks better. And finally, the rod for this lamp, MT02. So I know I want it to be black. 30-30-30. Roughness could be around 20%. Then the metallicness could be all the way up to 100. Okay. Then I also remember we need to set the cove light material. So let's try to pick that material, cove light. Set the emissiveness to 20 also. And the luminance, or I mean the color temperature to, should we try 3.5 also, 3500. Okay, let's try to preview our path tracing, how it's looking so far. Okay, so it's starting to get there. It still looks a bit bright because we don't have our curtains yet, but I think these values will do for now. Our emissive values are fine for now. So next step, let's create the image. So we go to media, then click on the plus icon here to create our image. Let's go back to our inspiration. This is a portrait orientation. So let's try to do something like that. Go to the image tab here on our properties. For the width, let's set it to maybe 3000. Then the height to 4000. So it's like a 4:3 aspect ratio, but it's going up in a portrait landscape. Then under camera, let's set the focal length to something like, let's try 30 first. 30. If that's okay. Okay. Actually, 30 looks fine. Something like this. Once you find the angle that you want, or that it's okay with you, you can update our thumbnail here by clicking on this refresh icon when you hover over it. Okay, I'm just gonna hit R again just to check how it's looking. Okay, this is looking fine. Okay, next step is we're gonna replace this Revit elements with something from another modeling software such as SketchUp. Okay, now if you look at our training files again, I've actually put in under models, there's a few SketchUp models here. So let's start importing those first, just to see how they look like. And then later on, we'll replace these families or these Revit models with those models from SketchUp. Okay, to bring it in, let's go to import. And then click on the plus icon again here. This time we just choose geometry, because we're just importing in a static mesh or a static object. So click open, navigate to where you have saved your exercise files. Then let's choose this one first. I think this is the bed. And this one, I like to collapse all, so that it just comes in as one object. But the great thing about this option, even if it comes in as one object, you can still apply the materials separately as long as the model has specific materials applied to it, like this one. Okay, so you can see there are materials that came in with the SketchUp model, but sometimes you may see something like this, like it's looking transparent. Actually, if you go inside, you can see there's a material applied. I think this is because the back face of the surface in SketchUp is actually the one facing outside. But this one is easily resolved by just clicking on the eyedropper icon, pick that material, and then if you scroll down under miscellaneous, you just make it two-sided. And if you scroll out, or if you pan out, you'll see it's already fixed. So this one is looking like it has the same problem, so I'm just gonna pick on two-sided. Okay, so this one, you can see it's a much better model compared to our Revit bed right now, which is all very boxy. But because in Revit, it doesn't matter too much how it looks in 3D. because our main purpose usually for Revit is for documentation. So as long as it's the correct size, the correct dimensions, the correct location, it's actually usually good enough for our Revit documentation. But here in Twinmotion, because we are doing renderings, we should have something more organic or more natural looking. So this one is a good example. I think it's roughly the same dimension as our bed, 180 by 2. Actually, it's a bit smaller, but it's okay as long as it's roughly the same size. And then what I'd like to do at this point is I would like to save this first into my user library so that I can later on easily pick it out here to replace our Revit model. In a while it will make sense. So let's just follow along first. So go back to the parent menu of your library, go to user library, maybe create a subfolder. I'm just gonna call this TRRX2. Go inside, and I'm just gonna click on this bed. Let me just click out of this, and then here on the scene graph, if you see there's a 3 dots here. If you pick that, and you can click on add to user library, so you can see it's already inside. Now once it's already there, I can start to delete this, including the folder that came along with it. Okay, and I can also even delete it here from the import tab. So click on the 3 dots, click delete. Then I'm gonna just go back to the inside of our model. I'm gonna pick this bed. Actually, let me just quit out of this media mode first so that I can see the whole screen. Pick on this bed. It will highlight on the scene graph. And then click the 3 dots again and choose replace object. And here is where we can drag this bed from our user library to replace this one. So just click on start replacement and it will replace that model. Sometimes it will not be exactly landing where you want it to be, but you can just always move it a bit so it's there. Okay. Next, let's do the same steps for the nightstand. So I'm just gonna import first our nightstand model, which is, I think it should be this one, side table. And then I'm also using collapse all. Click import. I'm just gonna use the scene material. And then if you're having trouble finding it in your viewport, you can always just scroll down. Here in the scene graph, it should be at the very bottom. Then when you click on that object and press F, it should focus back onto where that actual model is in the viewport. So again, once this is inside, I can even fix the materials here before I add it to my library. But in this case, I'm just gonna add it right away. We'll deal with the materials later on. So I'm just gonna add this to my library. After that, I can already delete this one and delete it from the import tab as well. Okay, let me go back inside. Now this time I want to pick these 2 nightstands, then right click and replace object again. And then I'm gonna drag this from our user library, click on start replacement, and you can see how easily we can replace those objects. And the good thing about this one is, again, it's not affecting our Revit model. It's still the same. So if these furnitures are already tagged in our furniture layout plan, whatever we're doing here for our rendering is not affecting our Revit documentation at all. So that's the power of this workflow. The renderer and the one doing the documentation drawings can work at the same time, and they're using the same model. Okay, so the bed is there, the nightstand is there, but I'm not liking the materials yet, so let's fix those. So this time I want to use an ash wood material maybe for our bed frame. So let's go to materials, wood, let's search for ash. Let's choose this one, ash 05G, just drag it onto the wood material of our bed. And then let's change the UV to world space. The color, I think I want something lighter. And yes, less orange. So I'm gonna just tone it down a bit. Yeah, around here. Okay. So you can play to whatever, you can use whatever material you want, but if you want to follow along, you can always do so. So I'm just gonna apply the same material to the rest of the bed frame, even to the base here, and even for this nightstand. Okay. Even for the legs. Okay. Let me just go back to our image. Okay, let's next let's fix this fabric material for our bed. So let me just choose this one. Actually looks okay. Okay, let's just change everything. I'm gonna go to materials, fabric. This time I want to use the fabric wool base, white. Just gonna drag it onto this surface. Then I'm gonna change the UV again to world space. Okay. Let's apply the same material there. Okay. But for this blanket, I want to use maybe this velvet material. Let me just consult our inspiration image again. Yeah, something brownish would look nice. Yeah. So let's use a velvet material, make it world space, but the color let's change to something brownish. It's brown or brown, grayish brown. It's a bit too dark. And for this pillow, maybe we can use the same fabric wool base material. Just want to make sure it's two-sided so that it's not affected by or it's showing both faces. Okay, so finally this bed frame or this back, let me just make it two-sided also. And let me just use the same material, this one. Okay. Let's try to see how that's looking. Okay, that looks fine. You can experiment to whatever materials you want to use for this model. But for me, this is good enough. Next will be to add some lighting and the decors for the scene. Let's consult again our inspiration image first. Actually, there's not much to do about lighting here. Our cove lights are already inside, care of our cove light material. We just need to add this lighting effect for our pendant lights. So for this, we're gonna use an Omnilight. So let's quit out of this media mode. Go back to our library, lights, then Omnilight. I'm gonna try to go under this pendant light and just place the Omnilight just below it here. Okay. The intensity doesn't have to be too bright, around 20. Temperature is actually okay at 4 or 5, I think. Then let's turn on the shadows. Okay, and then I'm just gonna drag this all the way to the other side to copy it. So I'm gonna hold Shift and hover over this red axis, then start to drag it towards the right. Now I know this is exactly 300 cm away, so I'm just gonna type 300 here. Make sure it's an instance, so if I change one, it will affect the other. Let's see how that's looking inside our rendering. Actually, 20 seems a bit brighter, so let's maybe lower it down to 10. Okay. Okay, let's start with this first. 10. So here we have the lighting, we have the material set. The only thing left to do is to put in the decorations to make our scene even nicer. But let's start first with the outside. Let's put a few plants and maybe a tree behind this glass. Okay, so let's go outside. Then under library, under vegetation, under trees, maybe you can choose this one. Little leaf linden. And then I'm just gonna place it somewhere here. And just gonna check our model, our view, if it's actually showing nicely. Let me just try to move it around here. A tip is you can pick on this icon so that you can see, you can go outside of the view and see how you can, if you move this tree, how it's looking inside our final image. So I'm just gonna try to rotate it and just to give it a nice silhouette for our rendering. Yeah, something like this. That's good enough. Then if you're done, you can always click that icon again to see what it actually looks like inside the final image. Let me try that again, because I'm gonna try to put some bushes also here. So still under vegetation, under bushes, let's choose this one, bush base 2. Just gonna place a few here. Okay, let's go back. See how that's looking. First render or R. Okay, that's good enough, because later on when we put the curtain, it's actually gonna block most of that view, but it would be nice to see the silhouette of that tree and some of those bushes coming through the curtains. So in this case, we're gonna use a SketchUp model again to put in some of the decorations, the plants that will sit on top of the side tables, the painting here, and maybe the rug underneath the bed. But this time we're gonna use a different method. We're not gonna bring it in as a static object here in Twinmotion. Rather, we're gonna create a separate SketchUp file, and we're gonna direct link that SketchUp file together with this Revit model. So we're gonna have two direct links. So again, it will make sense in a while, but follow along with me first if it's a bit confusing at the moment. So let's quit out of this first. I'm gonna go back to Revit. I'm gonna go to a 3D view, and let me just hide this ceiling. So I'm gonna hide the category of this ceiling. Okay, so I'm left with this, and with this I'm gonna hit File, Export, CAD Formats, DWG. And then click on these three dots because this is important. The solids need to be ACIS solids. This results with clean solid geometry when we import into SketchUp. Then under General, I usually just uncheck this one. AutoCAD format 2010 will do. Then I'm gonna export it. I'm exporting a CAD because again it results with the best geometry or a clean geometry when we import it into SketchUp. So I'm just gonna save it somewhere here. TRR EX2 reference, because this model will just serve as a reference inside the SketchUp model, so that I know exactly where to place our decoration elements. So I'm just gonna start. I'm gonna use Revit SketchUp 2024. I'm starting a new project with the millimeters template, architectural millimeters template, and then I'm gonna go to File, Import. Then I'm just gonna navigate to where I've saved that model, the CAD file, and I can hit import. Okay, I can delete this girl. And here is our Revit project. So right away, what I like to do here is I create two scenes right away. Where's my scene? Oh. Window. Shoot. I'm not very proficient in SketchUp, but where's our scene tab? There. Okay, so I click plus and another one, 2 right away, and then I rename the second one working. And then I click the model that came inside. It comes as a group conveniently. So under tags, I can create one layer called, I usually name it 0-ref. And then I just place this model under that layer or tag. And then if I go back to scene 1, I turn off that tag 0-ref, and then I update that scene so that it's not visible. It's because this is the scene I'm going to use to import back into Twinmotion. So whatever is visible in this view is what we will see inside Twinmotion. And since all of these elements already came in with our Revit model, I don't want to see them again through our SketchUp import. What I'd like to show up is the decorations I'm going to add now. So on a separate SketchUp window, I'm going to import first, copy the models that I have here, starting with maybe the curtain. Let's start with the curtain. So I'm just gonna hit enter to open this model. Okay, so this curtain, I'm just gonna Control C from this SketchUp application to the other one, and then Control V to paste it here. And then I'm just gonna move it. I'm gonna try to put it here. To make it longer, we can increase the scale in a while. So let me try to stretch it using the scale command S here in SketchUp. And then Also this way. Then the height, I want it to go all the way up to 2850 mm, which is somewhere around the top of this built-up wall, which is actually good enough because this one will be hidden by our cove ceiling. So this one is good enough. Next is I want to open the other, like the plants or the, yeah, let's go to our training files, exercise 2, models. We have the curtain. What's this one? Is it the plant? Yeah, this plant. So let's Control C again, copy it, paste it here inside. Wow, that's big. So let's scale it down uniformly this time to around 0.3 maybe. 0.3 of the actual scale, or its original scale. And then I'm just gonna try to place it on the center of this table. And then I'm gonna copy it to the other side. Maybe give it a bit of a rotation so that it's not exactly the same as the other side. And then next is the rug. So again, I'm gonna go to this other instance of our SketchUp and then click open and pick this rug. Now I like this rug because it's sort of not, or it's very organic. It has all those creases and folds that frankly will be a nightmare to do in Revit, or it doesn't serve a purpose to do it in Revit. It doesn't justify the time and effort to do this in Revit too. Anyway, it's not gonna be important for our documentation. So that's where SketchUp and other modeling software comes into play in this workflow. So again, I'm just gonna paste it here. I'm gonna rotate it so that it's facing this way. I'm actually gonna scale it a bit because it seems a bit small. Maybe around 1.5. Yeah, this one is nice, 1.5. And this one you can just do by eye. Doesn't have to be exactly correct, but somewhere around here is fine. Okay, with this, we're gonna import it into Twinmotion. To do that, let's go back to scene 1. And as you can see, it's only showing the elements that we just recently added. So this is perfect. We're not seeing any of the elements from our Revit model that's already there. So let's save it. Let's save this first. So I'm gonna go to exercise 2. I'm gonna name it the same, TRR EX2, and save it. I'm gonna go back to Twinmotion. I'm gonna go to the import section and click on the plus icon. And this time I want a direct link again because I want to be able to edit that model if I need to. And it's actually giving me the same problem as before. I just need to close this file and reopen it so that Twinmotion recognizes the correct file name. So I just closed and now I'm reopening the same file. Okay, go back to Twinmotion. Direct link sources, it should show up now, SketchUp, TRR, EX2. And again, since this is a direct link, I want to keep hierarchy. And when you click import and go back to SketchUp and click on the sync icon, it should show up here inside Twinmotion. Oh, it landed at the wrong spot. I think I forgot something. Okay, let's fix that now. It's good that we experienced this problem actually. So again here, when we export, there's actually an option that we should check also. So I'm gonna go back to export, CAD, DWG. Then under units and coordinates, I'm gonna choose this one, shared coordinates. Is it this one? Or is it the way we imported it? Let's try this one first. Let's shared coordinates. Okay, and next. And then I'm just gonna call this ref2. Leave. And then I'm gonna go back to the working scene here in SketchUp and re-import our reference AutoCAD file. So it should be under models, this one. Oh. Oh, it's actually landing on the same spot. Okay, maybe it's the way we imported it into Twinmotion. Hold on. Let me try it again. I'm gonna delete this file. Or, no. Maybe it's the way we import here in SketchUp. So file import TRRX2. Ah, this one. This one is the option that we should check. Preserve drawing origin. So that it follows the origin of the CAD file that we imported. So when you click import, now this is the correct location. So just to make it easier, let's use this old wrong location as a reference when we move these elements. So you can move from this corner to the other corner here. Then we can delete this one, the old model, and make sure to assign this reference model again back to the 0 ref layer so that it doesn't appear here in our scene 1. Then you can save and sync, and that way your SketchUp model will always be in the same location as your Revit file. Okay, so whatever we do now, actually this is looking bad because our SketchUp model is actually a bit, we moved this table a bit, this one. So let's actually fix that now. Let's go back to our SketchUp file. Let's just move these plants a little around maybe 100 mm in the green axis. Yeah, somewhere here, somewhere like this. Go back to scene 1, click sync, and yeah, that should fix our problem. It shouldn't fall off the table now. Now, since we brought in new elements, we should fix the materials right away for those. And like I mentioned earlier, the problem with those two phases for materials happens also usually for SketchUp models. So let's fix that right away. Let's try to pick the curtain material. Right now it's a glass material. Actually, let's just replace it to leave it a Twinmotion material. So let's go to fabric. And then there's a thin, where is that? Cotton plain thin. And then let's try to drag it onto the curtain. Then the same thing, let's try to make it two-sided just to make sure no hidden geometry is getting, no geometry is being hidden because of the material error. So let's do the same thing, but before that, let's change this to world space. Then apply the same material to the rest of the curtain. And yeah, I think that fixes it. Then this spot, it looks fine. It's a concrete material. Let's just change the roughness to around 60%. The leaves, let's change the roughness to around 30%. And then the rug, let's apply another fabric material. I think this one, Sedona, will look okay for this one. Let's make it world space. Wow, that looks too small. Actually, this looks better. Okay. Okay, let's try to go back to our media, to our image, see how that affects our image. Okay. So right now it's looking a bit dark and a bit too orange for my taste. So let's try to increase the HDRI first. So let's go back to environment for this image. Environment. Then HDRI, let's increase to 20. Okay, that's looking a bit better. Then the white balance, let's also try to change under camera, white balance. Let's try to change it to 6,000 or 5,500. 6,000 is, I think, better. Let's try increasing the HDRI a bit more, just a bit more. Maybe 3. Okay. Okay, this looks better. And it's starting to look organic already. Just a final touch, let's add painting. Let's quit out of this medium mode first. Then under library, objects, home, living room, decorations. There is a painting here that I use. I think it's this one, 70 by 100. Then let's rotate it vertically up 90 degrees. Use it somewhere here. Then I'm just gonna copy this to the right side. This time I want it to be a copy, not an instance, because I want to change the material for both of this separately later on. Okay, let me just position this a bit more evenly. Okay. So our reference image, yeah, there's 2 paintings with different paintings on each side. So let's change this one first. I'm gonna pick this material. Then under details, texture, I'm gonna open, and I've conveniently saved this 2 paint art materials inside. So let's first choose this one, art 1. I think the scale is too big. Let's try to make it a bit smaller. Or dito. Just make it half the size, but let's change the offset so that it doesn't tile. Maybe 0.6, and then just change the offset so that we don't see the tiling too much. Yeah, something like this. And then the other one, pick the art 2, change the scale also to 0.6. Then the offset we can also change a bit so that we don't see any tiling. Something like this was fine. Then let's check again our image. Okay. Now it's looking more and more complete. We just need to add the finishing touches. So let's go to FX first. Let's add a bit of contrast, 55%. Saturation, maybe let's keep it to 50%. I like this to be a bit muted. Render, we can already change to high because we're getting ready to export. And then camera, let's add a bit of sharpness, maybe around 10%. Local exposure, let's try to play around a bit here. I like it to be a bit brighter where the bright areas are. The shadows can be a bit lighter. So around here. Highlights. Yeah, I really want to see the overcast effect coming through from our skylight. Okay, yeah, this is looking nice enough. Then let's save it first before you export, of course, because that's where it usually crashes. If it's ever gonna crash on you, it's probably gonna happen when you try to export something, especially with 2025. 2024.2 I think is okay, but this 25.1.1 version, I experienced quite a few crashes already. Okay, so this one is good enough. Let's go to export. Let's click on the image. Click image 1. Start export. Specify where you want to save it, and I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so the rendering is done, and let's look at the final result. So here it is. Okay, not bad. Not bad for a very simple Revit model, which looked something like this before we brought it into Twinmotion. And then just after a few replacing of models inside Twinmotion, a few tweaking of the materials, and combining it with another SketchUp model, we can arrive at something like this, right? Compare it to our inspiration image. Yeah, I think we captured the feel. May not be exactly the same materials, the same models, or as this inspiration image, but yeah, that's how you can use a simple Revit model and really do the bulk of the work of beautifying it inside Twinmotion and not inside Revit anymore. And again, the beauty of this approach is that while we are doing all this visualization exercises or creating of the visualization materials, somebody could be working on the Revit model for the documentation, and it could happen simultaneously. We are not doing anything that's affecting or making our model heavier here inside Revit. Rather, we're just taking the bare bones of the model, the walls, the doors that are very easy to model here in Revit. Then we're just using it as a base for our rendering, and the rest could be the decoration. Especially, we don't need to document those inside Revit, so it makes sense to do it outside of the Revit model, but in a way that's still very easy to relay back inside our base model. Like in this approach, basically whatever we put here now is gonna land exactly at the correct position, because we're using the Revit model as the base reference. So if I mean to put other decorations here, like more plants or more painting or picture frames or whatever, especially those that we don't need to document in our project, we can do it here in the SketchUp model, sync it back into Twinmotion, and it's going to make our scene very beautiful without making our Revit model any more heavier than it has to be. So again, I hope you learned something in this approach, and this is one of my favorite features in Twinmotion, honestly. The ability to combine models from different software, different modeling software, but still end up with a compelling image like this one we did. Again, if you learned something, please like and subscribe, and I'll try to do more tutorial videos like this in the future. Okay, thank you, and see you again.